Sighing and shaking it away. Namaste. That's got us hot. So, almost forgot about this. We've got our reading to do in a minute on our 108-day challenge. I think we're on day 84, but we're finishing the last chapter of John Livingstone SEAGUL. And we will do that first, but we're also going to do it's like a belated happy birthday remembrance thing for Pamela Coleman Smith. Her birthday was actually on the 16th of February, which is the day after our birthday. We waited till today to do it because 1 + 6 = 7, and today is the 25th, which equals 7, so it's on that same 7 vibration. She was a very talented, beautiful lady, and a really inspiring artist, creator, and she wasn't recognised in her when she was alive. And her artwork is just so profoundly known and widespread at the moment. We were just felt strongly and were driven to do this for her. So we'll read this at the end, but we're just going to read the poem to start with. So happy belated birthday, Pamela Coleman Smith, from the 16th of February, 1878. And this is a poem that she wrote, I do believe, called Alone. Alone and in the midst of men, alone mid hills and valleys fair, alone upon a ship at sea, alone, alone and everywhere. Oh, many folks I see and know, so kind they are I scarce can tell, but now alone on land and sea, in spite of all I'm left to dwell, in cities large, in country lane, around the world, it's all the same. Across the sea, from shore to shore, alone, alone, forevermore. So we'll read that in a minute. But for the last chapter of John Livingstone, left nostril going mad. That's good, because that's the one we have issues with. Obviously very connected to presence, source energy, because the nose gets very itchy apparently. And we went out today. We really took it very slowly walking. We're really feeling through the physical pain, knees, feet, especially it was on our outside of our right foot, but we have around the heart area on our left foot, which is the nerve that goes all the way up. It's that left vagus nerve again. It goes all the way up and you feel it in the teeth and it goes up to like the scar. And that's sorting itself out because our chest area and our heart area is sorting itself out, and this is all in the fascia and the connective tissue. But we went up to the little spot and it was a consciously
conscious thing this time. So last time we were out of the psych ward so it's the Virgo full moon on Saturday. So it was the Virgo full moon about a week after being out of the psych ward last year. And the conscious eyes, the team of eyes that talk in the present moment, were locked inside the aware ones last time, and we just witnessed ourselves like suddenly get up and go out with all our sound healing stuff and some tarot cards and oracle cards and walk down to a field and do a reading. And then on the Aries new moon, we went up to this little tiny wooded area, which is a lot closer, and managed to get ourselves up a little tiny wee bit up the way of a tree, and then did a little reading up there. So this time it's about revisiting the previous patterns and the previous energies, but jiggling them about a little bit. So this time we did pull some cards, but today we weren't meant to go up with the cards or camera or anything. It was just meant to be us. So whether we get up there on Saturday for the full moon or not, I don't know. I'd like to think we do, but we don't know until the days come. But we went up there today and then just found a spot to sit on the ground, and did some sun gazing and connect our fingertips into the top of the earth. Rush of emotion. The big shift went on there. So there's obviously something, not obviously, stop saying that. There's obviously something going on, some connection to us speaking out loud about our experience, and the fact that the experience is a pattern of the previous experience, which connects in the energies of then to the energies of now, and then communicating it. It brought an emotional release, and that always happens as there's more connections. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we connected our fingertips into Mother Earth and just did a lot of sound healing and clearing to really ground us in, because Virgo is one of the most healing signs, very analytical, good eye to detail. We want positive connotation wording, so we're taking out wording of like pedantic or perfectionist or any of those words, or any negative connotation words that get associated with any archetypal energies. For instance, Aquarians are perceived as being cold, whereas from our perspective, Aquarians aren't cold. They just feel, or we just feel deeply. And so we have to cut ourselves off because we can't cope, which isn't cold at all. It's perceived as cold externally, but it's because we actually feel too much. So we're looking for a way for inspiring and expressing in new ways that accommodates everyone, doesn't trigger, doesn't react, but there's always going to be some triggers and some reactions. But if we can minimize that for others as much as possible, at the same time minimizing it for ourselves, what we give out, we get back. So yeah, it's a very healing energy. And what is it? It's 8:17 or this on universal time on Saturday morning, at 9 degrees, and 9 degrees Virgo for us is Mars. So we're loving that fact. It's challenging because it stirs up a lot of energy and a lot of emotions and can be really volatile. But it means that Mars is about action and passion and the male energies. So the male energies is thinking in the part, the structure, solidity, earth. So in those healing energies of Virgo as well, we're hoping, with our understanding of the energy so far in astrology, that our whole healing process and what we're doing is really going to be coming together and taking place after we shift through these energies, because this will be our first full moon to full moon cycle was Leo to Leo, and this will be Virgo to Virgo. And okay, so the young, okay, what was that? Our North Node and our Leo and our Ascendant rising is 29 degrees Leo Virgo, so it's on the Leo Virgo cusp. So we've just made that connection of those dynamics of energies as well. It's crazy how much, once we do hindsight and reflection, how much we've been living in alignment with the astrological, cosmological energies. Trips us out still. And the other good thing to go with those Mars energies at Mars 9 degrees Virgo, which is this full moon, is our sun sign and our moon and our south nodes in Aquarius on the equal house system in house 6. And house 6 on the collective system is Virgo. Virgo is the 6th sign in the zodiac when you get Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. So there's all these connections. And then what's even better with the DID and the our younger alternate personalities, we still find it very challenging to talk about, especially when it's the ones of us that are more aware and present, because there's this real, not battle, not fight, though it feels like that. There's this real complicated, challenging dance as we are reprogramming our subconscious mind in the physical bodies and the patterning and the connective tissue and the fascia and the electrical wiring of the body and the brain to clear out and purge the subconscious programming from childhood. Don't know what we're talking about, but it sounds like we're talking about the programming from childhood and the alternate personalities and the belief systems as we grow up the younger alternate personalities, and find that route or that path or that dance or that happy medium, so that you're not pushing against it, but you're not going with the flow either. Because we learn, so challenging. So we learn about we did a season's worth, just over 3 months worth of moon energy empowerment shift readings. And it's like daily, there's been stuff going on to suss out. And it was like, okay, today let's work out. I think we've been guided to work this out. So, when did we actually start our very first reading? And we worked out when we started our very first reading, and it was like, this was only a few days ago, or just under a week ago, and it was 6 months to the day. And it was in Sagittarius moon, but a Pisces sun. And was that right? It wasn't on Pisces sun, a Virgo sun and a Sagittarius moon. And the day that we figured it out on was the opposite of the Virgo sun that we did the reading on, which was a Pisces sun that we're in at the moment, and a Gemini moon. And Gemini's the opposite, the Sagittarius. And we've been dancing with this. What did we watch something back the other day of ours that said that we're in the state of when you've got two magnets and you push them together, but they're not in the right way and they repel each other strongly. That's where we're at the moment, and we're shifting it round so that those two magnets, when they come together, they attract. And it's just amazes me. So the therapists, sound healers, a few of those altars that were out then knew that in 6 months down the line to that day, we would need our own, which is why we're doing these, we would need these readings. So yeah, we've been starting on them to counterbalance the energies that we're currently in at the moment, because they're strong and can be a bit too much for us. We then watch the ones that are 6 months ago that the readings have been done, and then we'll watch another one we've only got 3, so it doesn't work out completely, but it will either be like 3 signs back. So 6 months is 180 degree, it's a square. So if you do the 90 degrees, no, it's 180 degrees, so it's opposition, sorry. But if you do the 90 degrees, which is 3 signs previous, each sign's 30 degrees, you get the square. So you're getting you've got the point of energy that the collective energy in nature's in the present moment. And as we're backwards and find it very challenging dancing with those energies sometimes, you then draw the line or the seesaw. So you've got the line to get that then central pivot of balance in the middle. So you've got 2 anchor points, but then a triangle has the strongest. Whenever you're doing woodwork or any kind of engineering, a triangle's got the strongest, pressure thing. So then you have to get 1 from either side. So we've also been bringing in that one as well, which are all the sacred geometry cards. We love the sacred geometry. And that's then when those therapists and sound healers, ones of us, had progressed and started doing sounding activations for transformation, sounding activations for grounding, sounding activations with the Fibonacci pulse reset for body communication, which is 8/13, because 8/13 is the proportions of every joint in the body. Or to find the center of balance, which is 21/34, which is phi, which is the golden ratio. So all that spiral pattern of like the sunflower seeds that go round, or space broccoli, that spiral pattern that we see constantly throughout life, of the galaxies, of the hurricanes, of water currents. Which brings you to the eye of the storm, and the eye of the storm is where that stillness is, the center is. And we've always found it so hard when people say find your center. It's like, well, what center? What are you on about? And for us, with the alternate personalities, each alternate personality tends to stick to 1 chakra, although there is a few that overlap through 2 chakras or more. It gets very complicated. So that you've got the chakra is a spinning vortex of energy, and you've got the center point of that. That's like the eye of the storm, the eye of not the wheel, because the wheel's 2-dimensional, the eye of the sphere. And you have each one of them at each chakra. You've got chakras all around your joints everywhere in the body, but you've got your main energetic centers, and then you've got your crown chakra, which incorporates all of them. And your crown chakra then goes down to your root chakra as well, because that then makes up the whole sphere, the whole of the body. And from putting that into not the energetic world, but putting it into physical, seen matter world, it's the left and right vagus nerve, which is the masculine and feminine energies, the 10th cranial nerve, the rest and digest being the left vagus nerve, the feminine, and the right vagus nerve being the masculine, the fight, flight, freeze modality. And about balancing them out and them coming together. And with our body, with the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the autism, all our injuries being on the left side, it's really affected that left vagus nerve, so it doesn't function, which affects the digestion. And then with the DID, basically all these things are our unique package, especially them with teeth missing. They've just created all these in current day wording. They've created all these like horrible holes and this, that, the other, but they're not. We've just got that unique package of accidents and mishaps in the physical body, the energetic, the emotional body from the traumas, that is brought together for us with our autism to be able to figure out the patterning in the physical body. Well, no, we haven't figured out the pattern in the physical body because we're not all together yet. When the physical body is all together, we're figuring it out on the energetic body first, because it's the energetic that manifests into the physical. So we're figuring it out on the energetic, so then we can put the physical body together in its right optimum functioning patterning. God, where have we gone? We've just gone all over the place, haven't we? And it's really cool because on the cards that we pulled today, we've got the fairy ones, we've got the yogic path, the crystals, the cosmic, and the tree ones. And on the yoga ones, we do the bottom and the top for the spectrum of energies that each one's dancing in. And we got the crown chakra is on the bottom. And underneath the crown chakra is the root chakra, and that then connects top and bottom. Thank you for sharing. So Yeah, we were getting to basically Mars is at 9 degrees Virgo in our natal chart. The full moon in Virgo is at 9 degrees in Virgo. And our Chiron, which is related to the wounded child, but also that's the typical known for wounded child. But if you look into it, it relates to once we navigate our wounded child from our innocent child and pure child, bringing it into our nature child, we transcend and transform ourselves into that magical divine connection or connection with source energy, subatomic energies. This is our hope anyway. Well, that's what we feel and believe at the moment, some of us, but then there's other ones of us that don't have a clue. We're really switching between a lot of them at the moment. It's hard to keep track. So yeah, we're hoping that then when one transforms that wounded child, but still keeps the innocence and the purity and the nature playful child, they then connect to source energy, and the tubular body is in its optimum pathway, so all the energy can flow as it's meant to flow. And then the sense of oneness and being connected to intuition, whether it's gut intuition, heart intuition, just then flows freely, and there isn't all this confusion, and all the confusion will go away, and we'll be able to just flow in the moment, living through our heart, and life's going to be easy because we will have got rid of that belief system that was programmed into us that life's a struggle and life being humans to suffer and all that stuff, which will be amazing because we look forward to having a fun, happy, playful life. But we're learning to start doing that already, but it's not that easy. But that's okay because we keep persisting, and we managed today. We had a day off our daily poetry reading today, and we got another day off tomorrow because we read 3 yesterday. We didn't have a full day off because we had to do the writing bit today. So that means we still can connect to the multiversal fields and do our creating, because for us to become self-sufficient financially, but then to do whatever it is we want to do work-wise, where we don't have to do much work, but we can get lots of money because then you've got more money to give away, one has to start doing the creative stuff to get the creative energies to kind of come in and flow. But also we know that in doing them, it clears stuff and it helps the physical pain disappear. But we can't always be in that energy state and those alternate personalities. It's too much for us and too exhausting, and it's always right brain, and we got a pile of left brain stuff that we need to do. So we had a day off and connected to nature today, and then tomorrow hopefully we will be able to start some of the left brain stuff and make phone calls and purchase our railway sleepers for our garden, so we start growing our own food, which be even more good medicine. We meant to be reading a book. We got to go toilet and we'd come back and read a book then, and no more sharing. We didn't know we were going to share lots. We thought we were going to be good and just read the book. We're stuck. Don't pull it, you'll break it. Sorry. Oh, pain. Oi, ah. Okay, hi. That was unexpected. Bit of cold water therapy, bit of gargling to stimulate that vagus nerve. Looks like we were finishing some of the healing process from earlier, because we went all over the place then, didn't we? It started with us taking ourselves back to connecting our peripheral nervous system and our fingertips into Mother Gaia. Oh. Okay, so we needed to share and communicate. Oh, let's read now. Yes, thank you, Grandma Moon, for doing your stuff, and Mother Gaia, and Father Sky, Father Sun, Grandpa Cosmos. John Livingston Seagull, a story by Richard Bach, photographs by Russell Munson. So much gratitude to you both. Richard Bach, with this book, does two things. He gives me flight. He makes me young. For both, I am deeply grateful. Ray Bradbury. People who make their own rules when they know they're right. People who get a special pleasure out of doing something well, even if only for themselves. People who know there's more to this whole living thing than meets the eye. They'll be with Jonathan all the way. Others may simply escape into a delightful adventure about freedom and flight. This book, quite simply, is unique. Jonathan circled slowly over the far cliffs, watching. This rough young Fletcher gull was very nearly a perfect flight student. He was strong and light and quick in the air, but far and away more important, he had a blazing drive to learn to fly. Here he came this minute, a blurred grey shape roaring out of a dive, flashing 150 miles per hour past his instructor. He pulled abruptly into another try at a 16-point vertical slow roll, calling the points out loud. 8, 9, 10. See, Jonathan, I'm running around. I'm running out of airspeed. 11. I want good sharp stops like yours. 12. But blast it, I just can't make 13. These last 3 points without 14. Ah! Fletcher's whipstool at the top was all the worse for his rage and fury at failing. He fell backward, tumbled, slammed savagely into an inverted spin, and recovered at last, panting 100 feet below his instructor's level. You're wasting your time with me, Jonathan. I'm too dumb. I'm too stupid. I try and try, but I'll never get it. Jonathan Seagull looked down at him and nodded. You'll certainly never get it, as long as you make that pull up so hard. As long as you make that pull up so hard, Fletcher. Fletcher, you lost 40 miles an hour in the entry. You have to be smooth. Firm, but smooth. Remember? He dropped down to the level of the younger gull. Let's try it together now, in formation, and pay attention to that pull-up. It's a smooth, easy entry. By the end of 3 months, Jonathan had 6 other students, outcasts all, yet curious about this strange new idea of flight, for the joy of flying. Still, it was easier for them to practice high performance than it was to understand the reason behind it. Each of us is, in truth, an idea of the great gull, an unlimited idea of freedom, Jonathan would say in the evenings on the beach. And precision flying is a step toward expressing our real nature. Everything that limits us, we have to put aside. That's why all this high-speed practice and low-speed and aerobatics. And his students, would be asleep, exhausted from the day's flying. They liked the practice because it was fast and exciting, and it fed a hunger for learning that grew with every lesson. But not one of them, not even Fletcher Lind Gull, had come to believe that the flight of ideas could possibly be as real as the flight of wind and feather. Your whole body, from wingtip to wingtip, Jonathan would say, other times, is nothing more than your thought itself in a form you can see. Break the chains of your thought, and you break the chains of your body too. But no matter how he said it, it sounded like pleasant fiction, and they needed more to sleep. It was only a month later that Jonathan said the time had come to return to the flock. "We're not ready," said Henry Calvin Gull. "We're not welcome. We're outcast. We can't force ourselves to go where we're not welcome, can we? We're free to go where we wish and to be what we are," Jonathan answered, and he lifted from the sand and turned east towards the home grounds of the flock. There was brief anguish among his students, for it is the law of the flock that an outcast never returns, and the law had not been broken once in 10,000 years. The law said stay. Jonathan said go, and by now he was a mile across the water. If they waited much longer, he would reach a hostile flock alone. "Well, we don't have to obey the law if we're not a part of the flock, do we?" Fletcher said, rather self-consciously. "Besides, if there's a fight, we'll be a lot more help there than here." And so they flew in from the west that morning, 8 of them, in a double diamond formation, wingtips almost overlapping. They came across the flock's council beach at 135 miles per hour. Jonathan in the lead, Fletcher smoothly at his right wing, Henry Calvin struggling gamely at his left. Then the whole formation rolled slowly to the right as one bird, level, 2, inverted, 2, level, the wind whipping over them all. Quack, 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 quack. The squawks and grockles of everyday life in the flock were cut off as though the formation were a giant knife, and 8,000 gull eyes watched without a single blink. One by one, each of the 8 birds pulled sharply upward into a full loop and flew all the way around to a dead slow stand-up landing on the sand. Then, as though this sort of thing happened every day, Jonathan SEAGUL began his critique of the flight. "To begin with," he said with a wry smile, "you were all a bit late on the join-up. It went like lightning through the flock. Those birds are outcasts, and they have returned, and that can't happen." Fletcher's predictions of battle melted in the flock's confusion. "Well, okay, they may be outcast," said some of the younger girls, "but where on earth did they learn to fly like that?" It took almost an hour for the word of the elder to pass through the flock. "Ignore them. The gull who speaks to an outcast is himself an outcast. The gull who looks upon an outcast breaks the law of the flock." Grey feathered backs were turned upon Jonathan from that moment onward, but he didn't appear to notice. He held his practice sessions directly over the council beach, and for the first time began pressing his students to the limit of their ability. "Martin Gull," he shouted across the sky, You say you know low-speed flying. You know nothing till you prove it. Fly!" So quiet little Martin William Seagull, startled to be caught under his instructor's fire, surprised himself and became a wizard of low speeds. In the lightest breeze, he could curve his feathers to lift himself without a single flap of wing, from sand to cloud and down again. Likewise, Charles Roland Gull flew the great mountain wind to 24,000 feet, came down blue from the cold, thin air, amazed and happy, determined to go still higher tomorrow. Fletcher Seagull, who loved aerobatics like no one else, conquered his 16-point vertical slow roll, and the next day topped it off with a triple cartwheel, his feathers flashing white sunlight to a beach from which more than one furtive eye watched. Every hour, Jonathan was there at the side of each of his students, demonstrating, suggesting, pressuring, guiding. He flew with them through night and cloud and storm, for the sport of it. While the flock huddled miserably on the ground. I haven't shown you many pictures. Oh, the poor book's falling apart. When the flying was done, the students relaxed on the sand, and in time they listened more closely to Jonathan. He had some crazy ideas that they couldn't understand, but then he had some good ones that they could. Gradually, in the night, another circle formed around the circle of students, a circle of curious girls listening in the darkness for hours on end, not wishing to see or being seen of one another, fading away before daybreak. It was a month after the return that the first gull of the flock crossed the line and asked to learn how to fly. In his asking, Terence Lowell Gull became a condemned bird, labelled outcast, and the 8th of Jonathan's students. That's obviously something to do with the number 8 there. The next night from the flock came Kirk Maynard Gull, wobbling across the sand, dragging his left wing to collapse at Jonathan's feet. "Help me," he said very quietly, speaking in the way that the dying speak. "I want to fly more than anything else in the world." "Come along then," said Jonathan. "Climb with me away from the ground and we'll begin." "You don't understand. My wing. I can't move my wing." "Maynard Gull, you have the freedom to be yourself, your true self, here and now. And nothing can stand in your way. It is the law of the great gull, the law that is." Are you saying I can fly?" "I say you are free." As simply and as quickly as that, Kirk Maynard Gull spreads his wings, effortlessly, and lifted into the dark night air. The flock was roused from sleep by his cry, as loud as he could scream it, from 500 feet up. "I can fly! Listen! I can fly!" By sunrise, there were nearly 1,000 birds standing outside the circle of students, looking curiously at Maynard. They didn't care whether they were seen or not, and they listened, trying to understand Jonathan Seagull. He spoke of very simple things, that it is right for a gull to fly, that freedom is the very nature of his being, that whatever stands against that freedom must be set aside, be it ritual or superstition or limitation in any form. "Set aside," came a voice from the multitude, "even if it be the law of the flock." "The only true law is that which leads to freedom," Jonathan said. "There is no other." How do you expect us to fly as you fly? Came another voice. You are special and gifted and divine above other birds. Look at Fletcher Lowell, Charles Rowland. Are they also special and gifted and divine? No more than you are, no more than I am. The only difference, the very only one, is that they have begun to understand what they really are and have begun to practice it. His students, save Fletcher, shifted uneasily. They hadn't realised that this was what they were doing. The crowd grew larger every day, coming to question, to idolise, to scorn. They are saying in the flock that if you are not the son of the great gull himself, Fletcher told Jonathan one morning after advanced speed practice, then you are 1,000 years ahead of your time. Jonathan sighed. The price of being misunderstood, he thought. They call you devil or they call you God. What do you think, Fletch? Are we ahead of our time? A long silence. Well, this kind of flying has always been here to be learned by anybody who wanted to discover it. There's got nothing to do with time. We're ahead of the fashion, maybe. Ahead of the way that most gulls fly. That's something, Jonathan said, rolling to glide inverted for a while. That's not half as bad as being ahead of our time. It happened just a week later. Fletch was demonstrating the elements of high-speed flying to a class of new students. He had just pulled out of his dive from 7,000 feet, a long grey streak firing a few inches above the beach, when a young bird on its first flight glided directly into his path, calling for its mother. With 1/10 of a second to avoid the youngster, Fletcher Lynn Seagull snapped hard to the left at something over 200 miles per hour into a cliff of solid granite. It was, for him, as though the rock were a giant, hard door into another world. A burst of fear and shock and black as he hit, and then he was adrift in a strange, strange sky, forgetting, remembering, forgetting, afraid and sad and sorry, terribly sorry. The voice came to him, as it had in the first day that he had met Jonathan Livingston Seagull. The trick, Fletcher, is that we are trying to overcome our limitations in order, patiently. We don't tackle flying through rock until a little later in the programme. Jonathan, also known as the son of the great gull, his instructor said dryly, what are you doing here? The cliff. Didn't I die? Oh, Fletch, come on. Think. If you are talking to me now, then obviously you didn't die, did you? What you did manage to do was to change your level of consciousness rather abruptly. It's your choice now. You can stay here and learn on this level, which is quite a bit higher than the one you left. By the way, or you can go back and keep working with the flock. The elders were hoping for some kind of disaster, but they're startled that you obliged them so well. I want to go back to the flock, of course. I've barely begun with the new group. Very well, Fletcher. Remember what we were saying about one's body being nothing more than thought itself. Fletcher shook his head and stretched his wings and opened his eyes at the base of the cliff, in the centre of the whole flock assembled. There was a great clamour of squawks and screes from the crowd when first he moved. He lives! He that was dead lives! Touch him with a wingtip, brought him to life, the son of the great gull. No, he denies it. He's a devil, come to break the flock. There were 4,000 gulls in the crowd, frightened at what had happened, and the cry, devil, went through them like the wind of an ocean storm. Eyes glazed, beaks sharp, They closed in to destroy. Would you feel better if we left, Fletcher? Asked Jonathan. I certainly wouldn't object too much if we did. Instantly, they stood together a half-mile away, and the flashing beaks of the mob closed on empty air. Why is it, Jonathan puzzled, that the hardest thing in the world is to convince a bird that he is free, and that he can prove it for himself, if he had just spent a little time practicing? Why should that be so hard? Fletcher still blinked from the change of scene. What did you just do? How did we get here? You did say you wanted to be out of the mob, didn't you? Yes, but how did you? Like everything else, Fletcher. Practice. By morning, the flock had forgotten its insanity, but Fletcher had not. Jonathan, remember you said a long time ago about loving the flock enough to return to it and help it learn? Yes. I don't understand how you managed to love a mob of birds that has just tried to kill you. Oh, Fletch, you don't love that. You don't love hatred and evil, of course. You have to practice and see the real gull, the good in every one of them, and to help them see it in themselves. That's what I mean by love. It's fun when you get the knack of it. I remember a fierce young bird, for instance. Fletcher Lind Seagull, his name. Just been made outcast, ready to flight the flock to the death. Getting a start on building his own bitter hell out on the far cliffs. And here he is today, building his own heaven instead and leaving the whole flock in that direction. Fletcher turned to his instructor, and there was a moment of fright in his eye. Me leading? What do you mean, me leading? You're the instructor here. You couldn't leave. Couldn't I? Don't you think that there might be other flocks, other Fletchers that need an instructor more than this one, that's on its way toward the light? Me, John? I'm just a plain seagull, and you're the only son of the great gull, I suppose. Jonathan sighed and looked out to sea. You don't need me any longer. You need to keep finding yourself. A little more each day. That real, unlimited Fletcher Seagull. He's your instructor. You need to understand him and to practice him. A moment later, Jonathan's body wavered in the air, shimmering, and began to go transparent. Don't let them spread silly rumours about me or make me a god, okay, Fletch? I'm a seagull. I like to fly. Maybe. Jonathan! Poor Fletch, don't believe what your eyes are telling you. All they show is limitation. Look with your understanding. Find out what you already know, and you'll see the way to fly. The shimmering stopped. Jonathan Seagull had vanished into empty air. After a time, Fletcher Gull dragged himself into the sky and faced a brand new group of students, eager for their first lesson. To begin with, he said heavily, you've got to understand that a seagull is an unlimited idea of freedom, an image of the great gull, and your whole body from wingtip to wingtip is nothing more than your thought itself. The young gulls looked at him quizzically. Come on, they thought, this doesn't sound like a rule for a loop. Fletcher sighed and started over. Very well, he said, and eyed them critically. Let's begin with level flight. And saying that, he understood all at once that his friend had quite honestly been no more divine than Fletcher himself, No limits, Jonathan, he thought. Well then, the time's not distant when I'm going to appear out of thin air on your beach and show you a thing or two about flying. And though he tried to look properly severe for his students, Fletcher Seagull suddenly saw them all as they really were. Just for a moment. And he more than liked, he loved what it was he saw. No limits, Jonathan, he thought, and he smiled. His race to learn had begun.
Showtime.
Excuse us on a little burp at the end there. So now that we've connected into the universal, so just a little bit of Om, A-U-M, Om. It's the, you may have heard of one perspective of the start of creation being, it started with the word. So in Sanskrit, some Hindu philosophy, the word is Aum. Aum. So that is the word that it started with, which is the universal, or as we like to call it, the multiversal vibration, because everything is vibration, and the slower, so it's atoms vibrating is everything. So the slower the atoms vibrate, the more dense it is, and the more compact they are, and that creates matter. The faster the atoms vibrate, the more spread out they are as well, then that's air. So a good analogy is the three states of water, or there's four now because you've got plasma. So it would be solid, ice. I'm not sure where the plasma, I think it'd be solid, plasma, water, air. So air is very vast, so you have to have a chamber to fit it. Water moves, and the law of gravity is applied to water, but water will fit the vessel, the container. Then you've got ice, which is just solid, and it's to do with like the temperature. And plasma is more of like, well, you've got your plasma in your blood. It's more of a kind of a gel-like material. So when we're doing the sounding, we're taking out the fifth limb of yoga is pratyahara, which is freedom from the desires of our senses. So when we take out the visual sight, even to take out the sound, you can do internal humming. Your body will start all vibrating, and then one doesn't get distracted with visuals. I don't know, because we have had experiences where we've seen in our third eye, but it's like black screen with the odd little image that may pop up of, like, you know, a blue sign, or, you know, I know when our nerves have been, well, we call it when our nerves connecting, because it's what we feel in the body, and it happens, it'll be black, but then we'll get these little orangey yellowy wavy lines that kind of come in. And then we've had, with our recreational drug use in the past, we've had some experiences where we've seen visuals and stuff. So for us, had we not had those experiences in the past, we wouldn't have had that key to the door to know how, when other people talk about seeing stuff in their third eye or visuals, we wouldn't know what they're on about if we hadn't had those experiences. But otherwise, it's just the darkness. But that's good, because it means that we listen and we feel with our body. And the more one sounds and uses the voice to sound and expression, and practices with the nose or the mouth, one's it's just trial and experiment yourself of making sounds, of humming, and the more you do it, and the more you can do it when you're moving, you can do it when you're sitting, you can do it quietly to yourself when you're watching something, or if you've got other people around. It just really helps clear the physical pain, the mental pain, the emotional pain, the congestion. And eventually, you know, or maybe not eventually, it might start with you'll feel your body tingling and vibrating. And for us, we've had glimpses. We haven't had the whole body, but we've had glimpses where we have whole sections or systems where we just suddenly get this group of vibration going on, rather than just kind of sensations here and there. We do have some global stuff going on, but it's global stuff on a surface rather than global stuff going in deep, or it's global stuff internally. I mean, one thing that used to happen is down in our private parts, not right down there, but the front of them, it would vibrate like you had a phone vibrating on it, or there'd be other certain parts that would just suddenly vibrate like you've got a phone vibrating on it. And as we're talking now, we just got an itchy thigh. So for us, what we've learned is that when energy starts going to somewhere where it hasn't been before, because the fascia is adhered, and there's no way for the energy to flow down it. But with everything we're doing is since the seizures, we've been panting and just pumping ourselves up. So in that pumping yourself up, it's like pumping up an airbed. You're creating space, hence the bloatiness. So we've just done the Sagittarius. Sagittarius rules the thighs. The thighs are some of the major muscles of the leg that makes the body be able to stand up. And our thigh muscles have never worked properly, because we've had like 4 or 5 muscles attempt to do the job of one muscle that doesn't function. So yeah, experiment with sound and movement in a subtle way, understanding that less is more. I mean, for us, we still have it in our heads that we don't have our own personal yoga practice, which is kind of a load of bull, really, because we will be in bed in the morning doing our breath work and changing our posture of our body. And that's, yoga is awareness. Yoga is the yoking, the union of body, mind and heart, and the cosmos, becoming at one with, so there's a oneness state. And the key, the doorway into that is the breath and utilizing the breath. And when we can't widen the body when we're meant to, we widen our mouth, and that widens the body, widens the shoulders, widens the rib cage. But I mean, the thing we've got to develop at the moment is the length, but we've had like a jaw operation. So it's really to get that oscillation, the movement between the length and the widening, and then front and back. So this is why we do the mouth yoga and the head and face yoga, to access our pelvis, because the pelvis, the psoas muscle, holds all fear and trauma, anxiety, and it got really locked up from emotional trauma, sexual trauma, physical trauma. So there's different ways into accessing the body, rather than the conventional way that Western society knows at the moment of doing yoga and perceiving yoga as physical postures and exercise. And we can use the reflex points on the hands, the head, the feet. Your jaw is your pelvis, wiggling it a little bit left and right, forwards and backwards. When we suddenly feel that tension in that chest and we can't breathe, we've learned that the crying, the anxiety, all of it, when we get into a hysterical state, we start hyperventilating and can't breathe. But that sounding of going inwards and actually making sound as one inhales, and making sound as one inhales through the mouth and the nose, for us, it's just been amazing on clearing congestion from the tubes. And it links us into all kinds of things. Like, we believe everything happens for a reason. Everyone does stuff for a reason. And we've always wanted to get to the root. None of this has been conscious. This is just as we get to know our alternate personalities. And like one of the alternate personalities, that the way they question is just like, it's amazing. It's like, well, why have they got a flat nose? Why is their nose bigger? Why is their nose smaller? Why does their nose look like a ski slope? Well, why does one smoke? Maybe one only smokes because they need to inhale through the mouth more in that shape. I've got this all kinds of crazy questions. That's like the dimples and the cheeks and the dimples in the chin. All of this we understand from the invisible threads of energy of the electromagnetic fields that flows through us. And if the physical body isn't aligned in its posture, then you can't get the alignment between the physical body and the energetic body, and then they come together and there's dissonance, and that causes physical pain. But you have anchor points and you have points of tension. But with a body that's got Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the ligaments, you were hypermobile, one subluxes, and the boundaries aren't there in the body. But that relates in the body to what relates into the emotions and into the mind. So someone that's an empath and has grown up being an empath, and when we say empath, we mean can feel what the energies and the emotions of other people, and can even feel the energies and the emotions of other people that the other people can't necessarily feel, that they're unaware of, their inner worlds that they're unaware of, in denial about, just aren't sensitive to. And so then the empath takes on those emotions. So we describe it like, if one's in a family and they're a kid and they're an empath, and there's all these different dynamics of energy in the family. Let's say one of them's oil and one of them's water. Oil and water doesn't mix. So the empath comes in, and the empath is washing up liquid and then facilitates the water and the oil to mix. So the empath is constantly someone that is balancing out the collective energetics in a room to make the most harmonic frequency between dissonant frequencies and harmonic frequencies. So there's as much as possible, this equilibrium and this balance between all these different frequencies going on, some that gel, some that don't gel. Now, if that child who's an empath and has this ability to alchemize other energies and frequencies, has someone around them to make them aware of what's going on and to communicate feelings and going, yes, this is what's happening and this is why it's happening, but you are your own person and you need to develop boundaries, healthy boundaries of saying no or this, that, the other, and know your own limitations and take yourself off for nurturing time, your own time. And here's some tools that you can use to do that, to recharge and settle. then it's all good. But if a child doesn't have that, then a child just grows up always being the person that makes the energetics of that room happy. And then if it has a parent that doesn't have healthy parenting skills because of their programming from a child, then they're made to believe that their job in the world is to make other people happy, when really anyone and everyone's own job is primarily to make themselves happy first, because that radiates out first, that radiates outwards, and other people then feel that. And from a lot of the self-development healing workshops, everything that's coming on, it's been so challenging with all the information coming in, and then each altar dissecting it, and each altar having its own belief system, and not really understanding the difference between belief systems and value systems, that recently we've just become clear that the value system is the heart-based system, and the belief system is the mind. And from what we hear from lots of different things in the news, there's become this real separation in the world with COVID. I mean, COVID really hasn't affected us, because we've been on this internal hermit journey since the seizures 4.5 years ago. And COVID started when we were in the psych ward last year. I mean, we've got some fantastic stories that, that the younger child ones make up, and then other ones have to question to really decipher what's the collective reality out there and what's kind of going on in here. But even then, we haven't understood that's what happened until afterwards, because we always get the understanding and the theory, because first we have to gather all the different bits of new terminology and words and vocabulary and then put it together. But we only put it together from dissecting all these other people's opinions and beliefs, to then go, well, we don't agree with that, and we don't agree with that. Well, what do we agree with? It's like, oh, look, this is what we agree with. So it's this or that, black and white, yes or no. And it's got into this real thing of like, my belief systems are changing. Then, I'm starting to see things from a different perspective, and I'm raising my vibration and all this stuff. But, my family aren't. How do I still love them? How do I still live with them? And that's the difference of going, well, we don't have to have the same belief systems as someone else to be friends with them, to be with family with them. And it'd actually be really boring, because how would we question? How would we widen our eyes to realize that the world is infinite and limitless, and to know what's going on, unless we're open to other people's belief systems, other people's ways of processing? And what it comes down to is to have the core values of, wanting to do the best for humanity, or wanting to eradicate hunger, or wanting to be compassionate, or, so when we've got the same value systems, and we can be our own happy, nurturing person within, we can then give other people space for when they need to do whatever, and then have that mirrored. So it's like, actually, no, I need to take some space. And you're with someone that understands you need to take some space, and that's okay. But they don't get jealous and needy because they go into their victim or their confusion or the drama tribe or something. But we've really sidetracked again. So, yeah, I suppose what we're saying in that, in relative relation to this, is we can learn something from everyone, especially from the people younger than us, especially from the people older than us, and especially from the people really different to us. And it would just be such a beautiful world if we could recognize people for their differences, for the gifts and the qualities that they bring to a world that functions so much on rigidity and fear and having to be the same because they don't want to be an outcast or condemned or feel isolated or lonely, yet there's something deep in their heart that's calling them to be an outcast and be lonely, because they're a leader to inspire other people, not a leader to be a leader, because a good leader is someone that leads by example. We don't preach words, you don't preach words, you don't like say this is how it is. It's a good parent. We grow our kids up knowing that they're not ours, to learn to question life, to learn to find solutions to problems, to not look at the problem and go, well, why is that like that? Or what's going on there then? Or how can we go about that? And it's like, when they ask questions, to then maybe put questions back and go, well, you're constantly, yeah. we're getting tongue-tied. So it'd be nice to give recognition to people of their differences, of their creations, of their authentic, unique expressions when they're alive, rather than having the 78 card tarot deck be so widely known with anyone that knows that divination tool around the world. And yet, well, we'll read the story because it says it all, and I think the poem says it all. So we'll start with the poem again and read it in order. Alone, alone, and in the midst of men, alone, mid hills and valleys fair, alone upon a ship at sea, alone, alone, and everywhere. Oh, many folks I see and know, so kind they are I scarce can tell, but now alone on land and sea, in spite of all, I'm left to dwell. In cities large, in country lanes, around the world, 'tis all the same. Across the sea from shore to shore, alone, alone, forevermore. And the way that we're understanding frequencies and the language of energy to work, vibration is. So we said her birthday was a day after ours. Her Pamela Coleman Smith. Our birth given name is Neve Deborah Coleman, but we have an E in it. So hers is Colman and ours is Coleman. She lived in a house down on a Lizard and then moved, when she lived in England, the southwest of England, Cornwall. She lived in the Lizard. I think it was the Lizard. We'll find out again in here. And then moved up to Bude. Now, where we live is kind of pretty much halfway between the Lizard and Bude in Cornwall. So like attracts like, but it's also that opposites attract, and the opposites that attract is like attracting light, but it's the mirror reflection. Because when you look in the mirror, but if you pretend another person is your mirror, that person's right arm mirrors your left arm. So it's the opposite. It's not quite as straight like that because that's linear. It works on this figure of 8 and this spiral pattern. But people, frequencies, things come together through that format that I'm just telling you there. We've got the date of the birth in February, we've got the name, and we've got the place that we lived. We've got numbers in there, we've got letters from words, and we've got the earth, land in there. So we're now incorporating the earth grid. So we've created the earth grid that we've actually trodden in all the different countries we've been to in the world. We've met, when we've travelled, people that haven't been in that country, they've lived in a different country. So we've got the there's the physical footprint of the earth grid we've created. There's the energetic earth grid we've created through meeting people and them going back round to where they live or wherever they live now. You've got the ley lines of the earth, of the energetics. So I think we've been to like 4 chakra centres of the earth: Bali, Uluru, Glastonbury Tor. And then you've got the meridians and the energetic centers in the body. And all of these lines, energetic meridians, spider web, multidimensional, rainbow electromagnetic fields cross over. And yeah. So Pamela Coleman Smith was born February the 16th, 1878 in Middlesex, England, of American parents. Her childhood years were spent between London, New York, and Kingston, Jamaica. During her teens, she travelled throughout England with the theatre company of Ellen Terry and Henry Irvine. Thereafter, she took up formal art training at the Pratt Institute of Brooklyn, New York, graduating in 1897. Although American by birth, she returned to England, where she became a theatrical designer for miniature theatre and an illustrator, mainly of books, pamphlets, and posters. She excelled in reciting folk tales and stories drawn from her experiences in Jamaica. Her circle of friends included William Butler Yeats and his brother Jack Yeats, plus other notable theatrical and literary personalities of the day. Around 1903, she joined the Order of the Golden Dawn and began to paint visions that came to her while listening to music, such as Beethoven, Bach, Chopin, and Debussy. She turned to writing and illustrating books, which realised only minor success. Events turned in her favour in 1907, when Alfred Stieglitz selected her art as the first non-photographic work to be shown at the Little Galleries of the Photo Secession, later called 291, on Madison Avenue, New York. She received praise from critics, and 33 of her drawings sold. 33 is the number of communication, made up of a double dose of creative expansion or expanded creativity, equaling 6 unconditional love. And it's the 3 master numbers, 11, 22, and 33. I forget what 33 means though, from the Google type one. She received praise from critics, and 33 of her drawings sold. But by the end of the year, her financial situation worsened. In 1909, under the guidance of Arthur Edward Waite, she undertook, for token payment, a series of 78 allegorical paintings described by Waite as a rectified tarot pack. The designs, published in the same year by William Rider and Son, exemplify the mysticism, ritual, imagination, fantasy, and deep emotions of the artist. Despite occasional art shows and favourable reviews by critics, the continued slow sales of her works and rejections by commercial publishers left her deeply disappointed and disillusioned. She wrote and published a poem, Alone, which provides insight to her isolation and despair. Alone, alone and in the midst of men, alone, mid hills and valleys fair, alone upon a ship at sea, alone, alone and everywhere. Oh, many folks I see and know, so kind they are I scarce can tell, but now alone on land and sea, in spite of all I'm left to dwell. In cities large, in country lane, around the world 'tis all the same. Across the sea, from shore to shore, alone, alone, forevermore. And some of us just resonate with that so deeply. After World War I, she received a small inheritance and leased a house on the English coast in the artists' colony called the Lizard. Is that what we said? I don't know if that's what we said. There's 2 down there. There's the Lizard and there's the other one. But She continued her attempts to write and illustrate books, although most of her works failed to reach publication. Suffering from physical and financial decline, she moved during World War II to Bude, Cornwall. The Lizard's in Cornwall as well. Despite continued output of stories and illustrations, she failed to realise any commercial success. She never married. She had no known heirs except for an elderly female companion who shared her flat. Shivering me tingles, we're getting really cold. She died on September the 18th, 1951, at the age of 73, penniless and obscure. There was no funeral procession to honour her life. There was no memorial service to touch upon the impact her work would one day have upon her admirers. No obituary about her appeared in any local newspapers. Her gravesite, if one exists, remains unknown. She died, disappointed that her paintings and writings failed to achieve financial success. Yet, she never stopped believing in herself. All of her personal possessions were sold at auction. Books, manuscript, paintings, drawings, furniture, even her personal letters, to satisfy her debts. Thus, despite her last wishes, her companion and heir was deprived of any inheritance, and everything went to strangers. Except for a few exhibitions during her early career that had moderate success, much of her work has disappeared. Pamela Coleman Smith, would be all but forgotten except for the 78 tarot paintings known as the Rider-Waite tarot deck. More than 6 million decks are in print. She would, no doubt, be astonished and gladdened to know that today the deck touches the hearts and emotions of millions of people. And so, yes, we wanted to do that because it's touched us, because, wow, astrology and the tarot really taken us on quite a journey to be able to understand ourselves. And so we wanted to pay our respects and gratitude to Pamela. So we'll end on a few ohms and we'll say goodbye now. Namaste. So much appreciation and gratitude to you, Pamela Coleman Smith. We're all over the place now. We're quite emotional. You may wish to join in with us, doing whatever you feel drawn to do. Hum, buzz, shake, rock. Sit there quietly with your hands on your heart, your hands on your back. Tito Paino. Okay. Namaste.